I think we covered, and I just kind of belabored that point a little bit, so I won't repeat too much. But I think always starting with like the foundation, right? If you're not starting at the beginning of just how do you onboard those new items, kind of like Brandon talked about, that is where that is where we see a lot of changeover and a lot of opportunity, right? A lot of retailers we talk to are changing over 15 to 25% of their SKU base every single year. Well, if you think about that, if for 2 years, all of a sudden, if that's 50% of my items, I'm actually doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna focus on it, focus on your new stuff first, and then that will also help inform what do I actually need out of the current ones that I have.
Yeah.
Working with your suppliers, retailers work with their suppliers each and every day. But with item data, it seems to be a little bit trickier. As Brandon hit on it earlier, they don't want to go back and work on items you're already selling in their store today. There's nothing in it for me, right? So you need to be able to articulate the why, right? Like we always talk about, like ask 7 whys and you'll finally get to the right answer. Like make sure you can defend it, right? If you're going to work with ask more from your suppliers, what's in it for them? What are you getting out of it? Like, how is that going to help the partnership? I think a couple other things to keep in mind too, depending on the industry, there's always going to be government things that come down, right? Like you're seeing like some ESG, FSMA things come through right now, when depending on what vertical traceability, right, for grocery. There's always going to be those things too, and you have to be able to react quickly. And there probably will be even more of them as you get into more, like a little bit more global, like everything gets back to that. And so I think if you don't have a good foundation, pivoting to some of those things is only going to be a heavier lift as you step forward, right? Or you decide to go do a PIM, right? Like you decide to go do anything, whether it's mandated or not. Having that foundation done sooner rather than later, not only is it going to be better for you, for your suppliers, but also your own internal employees to make sure they focus on, the things that are super important to your brand and growing you as a retailer. So.
Yeah. And Nick, I imagine that's not just government requirements. That's also consumer requirements. Like,
yeah, totally.
Getting back to like what Chris was talking about in the store, measuring the totes, and what Brandon was talking about too. Like, I imagine customers are going to start asking things of the associates in the store or online. Like, where was this made? How was it made?
Yeah. And that spans so many categories. Like a lot of us think about, is our clothing come from a sustainable source, things like that. But, we're working with some like building supply retailers right now. It's even important for like, where did this bamboo wood come from? Did it come from a replenishable source and like, like good for the environment? Or did somebody just like go cut down the forest and give it to us? Right. So again, country of origin, those types of things, so influenced by the consumers, not even government regulated. But if you don't have it, you're not going to sell it because nobody's going to trust it. Or, it's from the wrong place, right? You see that a lot overseas right now, and I'm sure that'll make its way over here too.
Well, and the other point too, they made, this is going to get factorially more complicated too, because as you start talking particularly about ESG, which is really smart to bring up, those regulations are going to vary by state and municipality, not just on a national level. So if you don't have a handle on this, good luck. It's going to get more difficult.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, Chris, you said earlier, if it's not coming from a top-down CEO initiative, it's sometimes hard to drive things through. I will say we're working with a rather large retailer right now on mapping some of this out well in advance of them buying a PIM. And it basically came from their CEO coming down to their organization and saying, how can I be selling products in my store when I don't even know some of the critical points around where did the item come from? What's in the item? Right. How can I feel responsible to my consumer if I can't answer those questions? And so obviously that's a pretty direct mandate to the organization. And we all know it's really hard then to be able to go back and get that. But that's a big effort that they're now going through and kind of mapping out the supply chain end to end. And where do I need to collect and connect these data points? But